Hello and welcome to episode 199 of Retro Encounter, RPG Fans' weekly podcast of many topics. I'm Mike Sollosi, and I'm here to discuss some trails, not trials, with three other RPG Fan staff persons, starting with Zach Wilkerson.
Hey there.
And Alana Hagues.
Hey.
And Caitlin Argyros.
Hey.
Now, in the month of August, we are going to be playing through The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel. This is our second Falcom Game Journal game of the year, which is no problem at all for me, because, I mean, Falcom experiences are overwhelmingly positive as I've come to play every new one over the past couple of years. But this is not the first time the podcast has covered the Trails series. Legend of Heroes has been around a long time, decades even. I think the first one was that Dragon Slayer game in the 80s that no one's played. But
I have.
Oh my.
Oh.
It's real hard.
Oh boy, I bet. I mean, I'm not. I have no desire to play that at all, because like trying out the three PSP Trails games. Sorry, not PSP pre-Trails Legend of Heroes games like White Witch and Vermilion. Was it Vermilion Tier? Really? I don't know. I tried two of those three and thought they were awful, so I was unbelievably surprised with how much I enjoyed Trails in the Sky when that came out in English in 2011. But regardless, Legend of Heroes has been around a long time, and it's probably the signature series of Nihon Falcom. Three of the four first episodes of Random Encounter were playing through Trails in the Sky, but none of the four of us were on those episodes. I guess this is going to be very Trails specific, more so than Legend of Heroes specific. But let's talk about our individual backgrounds with these games. Starting with you, Caitlin. I know you're a big fan.
Yeah, so Cold Steel is actually my first Trails game, or at least the first one that I got through all the way. And I loved it so much that played it in Cold Steel 2, and then once we got the word that we were getting Cold Steel 3 localized, I went back and I finally did the thing that I should have done ages ago and played through the Sky trilogy.
Yes.
I've been doing like a series replay so that I am prepared for Cold Steel 3 when it comes out, now with a later release date of October 22nd, I believe.
And these are not brisk games, so a series replay prior to Cold Steel 3 is no joke at all.
Yeah, I'm not tired of the games. I haven't gotten like exhausted of the games, but I have been a little worn out by the fact that if I'm not doing like a review project, I've been playing Trails. I'm looking forward to playing some other games in my backlog once I'm all caught up and ready for Cold Steel 3.
And Cold Steel 3 is coming out in English this year in October. It was a September date, but it got pushed a month fairly recently in I don't know, mid or late July. But
it's a very good thing that they pushed it back. September is way too stacked with games.
Yeah.
And if they need extra work for the localization or for optimization, then I welcome it. Shorter load times and avoiding a situation like the Ys 8 launch, that sounds like a good plan to me. But Alana, you probably haven't played as many Trails games as Caitlin has, but you and I demoed Cold Steel 3 at E3 last month, or 2 months ago. And so what other Trails experiences have you encountered?
Well, Cold Steel is my first, and this is my very first playthrough of any Trails game ever, so I find this is probably a nice starting place, but I feel like somebody in the Falcom Trails Kiseki series will like jump out and scream at me and tell me I'm doing it wrong. But I've kind of had a secondhand experience with Cold Steel because my mom actually played it when it first came out a couple of years ago.
There is still an open invitation for a Retro Encounter panelist position to Mama Hagues.
I want to talk to your mom.
So yeah, she's played through it. I kind of caught bits of it, so I knew and I know little bits, but I didn't know the overarching thing, and I'm kind of not a massive, like, oh my goodness, spoilers. Like, a lot of it is to do with the journey and the experience with all the characters. So yeah, this is my first time playing it, but now as of recording, I'm approaching the end of the game. I am almost guaranteed going to jump straight into Cold Steel 2 and probably the Sky Games towards the end of the year.
Yes, one of us.
One of you, indeed, definitely. But yeah, first time playing through, and it's been a really fun time so far.
Right on. I think I'll go next. I knew about the Trails games, at least in the early 2000s, because people were talking up how good some of the Japanese ones were, and so I played the two of the PSP ones that weren't that were pre-Trails. Again, it would have been probably the late 2000s, like 08 or 09 range, and Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky was always showing up on people's lists of great Japanese RPGs that will never come out in English. But then, lo and behold, in 2011, Trails in the Sky 1 does come out in English, and I play it, and I really, really love it. That was my first real Trails experience that lasted beyond 3.5 hours. And I really enjoyed Trails in the Sky 1 and 2. I think I waited a little bit to play 2 because it took a while for it to come out on PSP, and I wanted to use my save from Trails in the Sky 1. But that's where it ends. I never got around to Trails in the Sky 3 or any of the Cold Steel games. I bought Cold Steel 1 when it came out. I still had it in the fancy special edition Vita packaging. Which would have been, I'm not exactly sure, but at least 4 years ago. Maybe 5.
It came out December 2015.
Okay, so yeah, 2015 then, because I got it at launch, but never made it past the first few hours. I was always distracted by something or another, and this is my first real committed playthrough of it. I am not as far as Alana or Caitlin. I am right at the end of Chapter 2, so I'm gonna have to binge a little bit to make sure that I'm ready to finish this game off in 2 weeks. But I'm motivated to do it. I like every chapter seems better than the previous one so far. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty exciting to me. So Zach, what is your background with Kiseki/Trails?
It's pretty limited. I'm actually pretty much in the same boat as Alana. I picked up Trails in the Sky years and years ago, but around when it came out for the PSP, and I got maybe 2 hours into it, and then I just fell off of it. I liked it. It's totally my jam, my style. Story-heavy, sort of political intrigue type games, and I've had Cold Steel sitting on my shelf for a long time as well. But the turbo feature really sold me on playing this one because it's really helpful in terms of making it go quicker. And so I'm enjoying my time with it. I think the combat system is pretty cool too. This is my first experience with it.
And you mentioned the turbo feature. That's, I think, exclusive to only the PC and PS4 versions?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Right, Caitlin?
Yeah.
Right. And that just speeds up... Is it all actions on the screen or only animations and combat?
It's almost everything. They made it so that you if you're in combat and you get a link attack, it doesn't turbo through that, so you don't lose your chance of activating it. But pretty much everything else is turboed, and it does involve actually skipping animations. So if you like watching the animations, you might want to turn it off for like S-crafts and whatnot like that, so you can still bask in the awesomeness.
So does the entire cast sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks?
No, it doesn't speed up the dialogue.
Come on.
It does not speed up the dialogue.
Why would you want that? What are you actively trying to do? Like, achieve there?
I don't know, as someone who listens to podcasts at a 1.15 times speed, I don't know, maybe I'm just used to people talking a little bit quickly.
I feel like I found something out about you today.
I listen to so many podcasts. It is 100% for convenience sake and not for taking in as much content as possible sake. If it goes much faster than that, I think it's too fast and it makes the music too bad. Yeah, that turbo feature is not in the Vita version, so it's been a bit of a slog for me. I just sometimes it's fine, like just going through towns or tinkering or even combat most of the time. I'm fine with it because you can skip any animation by just pressing the start button. If I'm not interested in seeing an S-craft animation, I can go ahead and skip it. But The turbo feature, I bet that would be really handy, just going through these very large open paths that the dungeon and field areas are.
Yeah, I mean, especially in Chapter 3, where you're in the Nord Highlands, I mean, and you're going all across these, like, vast, like, almost, like, Xenoblade areas. It's really helpful.
That is different from Chapter 2.
It's not that big, but
yes, it is.
Same ballpark, yeah.
The other chapters afterwards are not as expansive. Nord is about as wide open as either Cold Steel 1 or Cold Steel 2 get in terms of a single area, so you don't have to worry about it continuing to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and suddenly you're like, ah!
Right on. So I guess if we're going to jump into this game, we should start at the beginning. The characters and the school. This Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel takes place at Thor's Military Academy, which is located in the Erebonia region. And if you were a player of Trails in the Sky, you might remember Erebonia is the empire that was a former enemy of Liberl. Liberl is where Trails in the Sky takes place. And the character Oliver comes from Erebonia. And a lot of people in Trails in the Sky thought of Erebonia as the enemy nation, sort of. Trails of Cold Steel takes place several years after Trails in the Sky. They reference the events of Trails in the Sky a couple times in just inconsequential dialogue or library books. I don't think it's a requirement to play Trails in the Sky beforehand. Oliver does show up in Trails of Cold Steel, I know, but I don't think it's a major key requirement.
They usually just refer to it as like the incident in Liberl. I mean, like it's not something that gets heavily referenced, even up to where I am.
Yeah, I didn't feel when I played Cold Steel the first time that I was majorly missing out. I knew a few things, like I know who Olivier in the Sky Games was. I already knew that reveal. But I didn't really know the story of the events in FC and SC. And I enjoyed Cold Steel just fine. So yeah, it's a very good, and it's intentional. And Falcom wanted Cold Steel to be a good starting point for people who might want to get into the series but didn't want to play through the older games.
Yeah, I basically agree. It's technically there was 5 Trails games, but in between Sky and Cold Steel, Sky 1, 2, and 3, and then the 2 Crossbow games, Trails in the Blue and Trails of Zero, or however you want to translate Ao and Zero no Kiseki. Again, this is a very, very good entry point by all appearances, but it takes place in Thor's Military Academy, and it centers on Class 7, which are 9 students that are that you basically meet all of them at the same time. Rien Schwarzer is the player character who is always with you, except for one surprising part of Chapter 2. But in general, it's a diverse group that represents the makeup of Erebonia and the conflict going on within Erebonia, and this is extremely deliberate. But because without going into it too deeply, Erebonia is a very large, wealthy nation. It's bigger and I think more industrialized and more developed than Liberl was even. But there's a noticeable class divide between nobles and commoners. And at Thor's Military Academy, there had always been a noble classes and commoner classes, and they were even separated by different uniforms that they wear. But Class 7 does not wear the white noble uniforms or the green commoner uniforms. They're a special class that is mixed of nobles and commoners, and they wear snazzy red uniforms.
They are a brand new class for that year as well.
Yes.
The first year of Class 7.
Yeah, I think before it was always 1 and 2 were noble, and 3 through 6 were commoner, and
there's no Class 6.
There's no 6.
Yeah, 3 through 5 were commoner, sure. And 7 is the first special class, and it's only 9 students, which, I don't know, seems a little bit lightweight for an entire homeroom class. But
it's probably for the best, though. 9 characters is kind of pushing it as it is in terms of, like, development time.
Yeah.
So. And that's just 9 to start out with, so...
Yeah, and I think that some of them don't really even get much story shine until Chapter 2. But we'll get to that. We want to look at each member of Class 7 individually. So I just want early impressions. Let's, of the 9 main characters, let's each bring up our favorite, and then we'll talk about the 5 or 6 also-rans afterwards. Alana, I think I know where you're going with this.
Oh, no. There's 2 ways I could go with this. This is unfair.
Give us both, then.
Alright, so let's go for Laura first of all, because
Yes,
that's
the
mine.
queen.
absolutely. I will save her for anybody else then. So I'll talk about Eustace next.
No, it's fine.
Yes. Oh,
You picked
I
you
love
picked
you.
two of my top three.
Yeah. So I'm really surprised by how much I like Eustace, because initially he came along, he was all like, "Oh, I'm the best." Like, Eustace basically is one of the sons. So we were talking about how Erebonia, there's quite a few royal families. There are 4 main royal families, and Eustace is the son of one of the heads of one of those royal families. Basically the second highest ranking out of all 4 of them. Eustace definitely wears that on his sleeve. He's very much a noble boy. He doesn't like commoners. He's very self-assured, and I thought, oh god, not this jerk. But at the same time, I looked at him and was like, I feel like I'm gonna like you. And 45 hours later, I really do, because Eustace has some quirks, and he has a particularly good rivalry with a sort of commoner, but yeah, I love Eustace. I live for Eustace and Machias' rivalry so much.
It's real good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But he gets quite a lot of development quite early on. I mean, he is one of the focuses for Chapter 2, and his relationship with Machias is pretty particular in that point. But I just really like him, and he's a bit of a lot of the characters are based on anime tropes, kind of like the Tales series, and Eustace is definitely one of those. But he seems to come out of it and, be a reverse of it at times as well, which I really, really like. But, yeah, Eustace is my favourite. He also has the best pants. He has the best trousers, hands down.
I enjoy that these are all students at a military school, and they have a uniform that they follow, and they have identical jackets, but they're allowed some customization in shirts, trousers, shoes, skirts.
Yeah.
The 4 female main characters all have a different color skirt.
I like the way the guys wear their jackets differently. Elliot has a waistcoat, and Gaius is a little bit longer. So...
Gaius has it on, almost, he's the tallest member of Class 7, but he also wears an oversized coat that almost hangs off him.
Yeah, it's very cool. But yeah, Eustace is my favourite and still is, and I'm kind of upset that he is, but I'll defend him for life.
Nothing to be upset about.
The thing is,
so good.
The thing is, I don't think he's a real jerk noble. He's if any.
No, that's Patrick.
He's not Patrick levels.
No, he's not Patrick. Yeah. And I think in a worse game, Eustace would act more like Patrick. But Eustace is he is the scion, or one of the scions, of one of the most 4 powerful families in the country. And this is a country that values nobility and appearances and a bunch of noble traditionalism that Eustace maybe doesn't reject, but he definitely doesn't like. He is. It's not that he doesn't like his family or doesn't like being a noble. He definitely does not enjoy how he's treated differently because of his status, and sort of resents parts of the Erebonian nobility nonsense, and as such, he has to keep up appearances, has to act like this cool boy, but is not so secretly just as annoyed with everyone always.
I mean, I'm not sure if we're talking about this yet, but there's sort of a reason for that too, right? I mean, sort of his own sort of lineage being only half noble, right?
Yeah.
Yes, his mother, it comes out later that his mother was a commoner, and that probably gives him some, I don't know if inner turmoil is the right word, but also has him question
self-awareness.
Has him
it's
question
definitely
things.
inner turmoil because his
sure.
older brother is full noble and is the poster boy for the nobles.
Yeah,
his dad is a real jerk who doesn't really love him.
No,
Yeah.
I really like his brother is Rufus, and I actually really like Rufus. It's okay, you are either very not evil, or you are going to completely blindside me when you betray everyone later.
I don't know
Douglas
anything, but it's
so
my
good.
guess that he's going to blindside. I don't know. I'm curious.
I don't know. Maybe it's I think Rufus cares about the nobility and cares about his country and doesn't want to antagonize Eustace and his friends, but if all of the nobles end up turning on everyone, then he would be one of their leaders for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know I don't know anything about that because I've avoided most spoilers, but one of the biggest spoilers of the game I already do know. We'll talk about that in part 2. And it was because of an anime opening of all things. But yeah, back to Rufus and Eustace. Again, I think
Rufus and Eustace, yes.
Yeah. I'd watch a movie called Rufus and Eustace just sight unseen. But they're extremely representative of the Erebonian nobility, with Rufus kind of embodying it, and Eustace kind of living within it, but wanting to rebel against it a little, maybe. And I like Eustace a lot. Again, I think I have 3 favorite characters in Class 7, and he's one of them.
Yeah.
He's so good in part because he's a great foil for Reen, who
Yeah.
by this point we know that Reen is also a noble, but he's been adopted. He doesn't actually have noble blood in his body, and he says that multiple times. It's a sticking point for him. He doesn't really feel like he deserves to be a noble because he wasn't born one. And I feel like Eustace is a great foil for that, to show him, just because you weren't, a true blood noble doesn't mean you can't wear that with a certain degree of pride. And then
you have Machias at the opposite end of the spectrum, with who's a commoner whose father is a successful governor, which is and also a commoner, but he really, really hates the nobility and the and the class divide. So Eustace and Machias exist at opposite ends of this Erebonia spectrum, and Reen is right in the middle of it, being of commoner birth, but raised by nobles and not really being comfortable being calling himself a noble. When he when Machias basically demands that everyone identifies himself as a noble or a commoner in the prologue, Reen pauses and said, "I don't have a drop of noble blood in me." Which
Right.
which Machias does not appreciate later when he finds out that Reen's father is a noble. But Eustace and Machias really illustrate that difference, and I guess I'm on Team Eustace pretty clearly, because Machias has a much more...
Machias is an ass.
He has a much more unpleasant personality.
I quite like Machias.
I mean, Machias is one of my favorites only because he reminds me of myself when I was 16.
Oh boy.
So, 100%.
He's unpleasant, but I don't think he's a bad character, and he's not.
And
he really
has
grows in chapter 2.
reasons that
Yeah.
you'll find out about in our second episode. But he's still an abrasive ass about it.
For sure.
he overreacts more than anybody else in the entire class, and that's including Eustace, who does kind of egg him on a little bit. But yeah.
Oh no, neither of them is guiltless in the animosity between them.
They have such a great love-hate relationship, though. I mean. Yeah.
And Machias is also an overachieving serious boy who was either second in the exam to enter Thor's or tied for first.
He was second.
Yeah, second to Emma, got it. And he was he's the class representative and an extreme stickler, and studies super hard. And maybe it's his upbringing, but he clearly believes that everything needs to be earned, and nobles are unjust in having wealth and power handed to them. So he works super hard, his dad works super hard, and he's super mad at all nobles because he doesn't think they've earned what they have. Or at least that's my interpretation of it. But so we've already tapped into Eustace and Machias and Reen a little bit. Caitlin, who's your favorite of the 9 main characters of Cold Steel 1?
Well, aside from Eustace, who is my favorite, so we already talked about him, Laura is so good. Laura's probably my favorite out of the female members of Class 7.
I think she's my favorite overall, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's also a noble, although she doesn't belong to one of the 4 great houses. Her father is the leader of the Arsaid family and school of swordsmanship, and they control. He's a viscount, so he's relatively lower down on the nobility totem pole, but still very well respected because of his mastery of his sword style and the fact that he trains the military for Erebonia a lot of the time. It's interesting. She's also very, assured and has pride for her family and her lineage and being a noble, but she's also a bit more level-headed about things, very level-headed about things. It's one of the most level-headed members of the entire cast, I think, and that's part of the reason why I think it's easy to like her. Mm-hmm. She's strong, she's courageous. she will, she'll say and fight for what's right. She doesn't like use her nobility as like a crutch or a, oh, look at me and how important I am. She's very much focused on that sort of ideal of knighthood, of being, someone that other people can look up to, and in a good way, and not in a because their social status is so much higher. So, and she's also like the most powerful member, like powerful member of your party. And whenever you have her in your party for a chapter, it's like easy street because she can just destroy everything.
Yeah, she wields a broadsword or greatsword about as tall as she is, and and whose like handle is probably thicker than her arms. But yeah, she wields it with grace and so much power. Oh my god.
And yet, for some reason, when she puts it away at her waist instead of putting it on her back, and I'm like, okay.
That anime magic.
Yeah, when realistically, it should be, like, dragging down whatever clothing it's attached to, like it's like you tied a giant sword to it. But she attaches it to her waist, and then it vanishes, because, hammer space, anime magic, whatever you want to blame. But I just like her for being sort of cool, serious, and likable, and how everyone seems to either love her or fear her in the in the school. Like she's on the swim team, I think, and she's good at that too. But like the other people in the swim team, like almost look at her like some kind of athlete monster, and which. But she handles it with grace and in stride. So I don't know. I really like Laura. She's a great character. Mm-hmm. And she has a hot dad, am I right, Alana?
She has a hot dad. There are some hot dads in this game. We will get to some of those.
All right.
Mostly in part 2, I would say.
I think I haven't met any hot dads yet. I'm so upset. But
Chapter 3 has a hot mom and a hot dad. So
right on. Mm-hmm. Those sounds great. But we will get to that in the second podcast for sure. But staying in the present, Zach, other than Laura and Eustace, what's one character that you really enjoyed in Cold Steel?
I mean, we've talked about all three of my favorites at this point, Eustace, Machias, and Laura. So I guess I'll talk about Fee.
Fee!
She's not really one of my favorite characters necessarily, but man,
she's
when you build her the right way in battle, she's so fast that she can evade so many attacks that she really, similar to Laura, really makes a huge difference in battle. And just the number of like status effects that she can inflict is really cool. And I can't talk too much about her background yet because we don't know much about it. We do know that she was in the Jaeger Corps at this point, right?
Yeah.
I think we do.
Yeah.
Oh, so she's another in the fine line of Kiseki child assassins.
Indeed.
That's right.
Right on.
Yeah, and we get a little bit of better background there. Yeah. I like
without spoiling the Trails in the Sky series, there are at least 3 key characters who are child assassins.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
She's definitely of that lineage, yes. And I really like, speaking of my favorite character, she has sort of a rivalry that develops toward the end of Chapter 3 with Laura, and just sort of the way that works out, and the maturity that they both sort of show with it. And she grows sort of in the process as well. I like that a lot. But really, I just like the way she plays in battle.
Yeah, evasion tank Fee is a viable strategy. I'm just saying this right now for when you guys get to the end game. She's a really good idea for one of the final bosses, and she will continue to be a good idea in Cold Steel 2 for some of the optional bosses.
Ooh.
Just point of fact, whenever you have a good piece of equipment that has evasion on it, don't get rid of it until you know that you're not going to get a better piece of evasion gear from like a later chapter, because you can stack evasion on her crazily. Like, you can have her at either 95% or 100% depending on your equipment, and then if you use you use a master quartz that gives her shining by default, or if you cast shining on her so that she has 50% evasion on top of whatever she's wearing, she can like basically survive almost everything.
She's guaranteed to get like 2 turns for every one of everybody else as well, even with like 1 extra bit of evasion or speed. Yeah, like, I've stacked move and evasion on her already, and she's.
I think her orbment also has time and wind on it, so they're encouraging speed and evasion on her build already.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely.
And personally, as a big fan of Xenoblade's naked Dunban build, I welcome speed and evade tanks. So this sounds great. I like Fee as well. She has a bit of a I don't want to say a flat personality, but she has a bit of a sort of a no-sell personality, like she won't
nonchalance.
Yeah, like nonchalance, boredom. She enjoys sleeping a lot, and she also is preternaturally agile. Like when a big trapdoor tricks everyone in the first hour of the game, she's the one character who jumped up and grabbed a chandelier or a chain or something, which is crazy. So yeah, like if she's a former child assassin, like certain Trails in the Sky characters, I would not be shocked at all by it. But also, she's definitely cute. She looks more childlike than the rest of the cast so far, at least. And Emma has almost like taken a big sister role towards her. Emma is always helping Fee study because Fee is maybe the most athletic member of the class other than Laura, but has a lot of difficulty with school. And Emma's the number one testing student, so that's cute. I also enjoy how blunt she is. How like in chapter 2 when you're going through the noble city, it has Alberea in it. It's like
It's Berea Hard.
Yeah, Berea Hard. That's it. Yeah. When you go through Berea Hard and everyone's treating Eustace differently, and Eustace is a little embarrassed by it, Fee's like, "This sounds dope. I could get used to this."
She likes to tease. She does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I guess it's my turn. We've already gone over Laura and Eustace, so I'm going to cheat and talk about my third favorite character, who is not in the class of Cold Steel. We're going to talk about Instructor Sarah.
Ah,
of course.
If I know we could have cheated, she's my favorite character in the whole game.
Yeah, she is awesome.
She's amazing.
Sarah is the instructor for Class 7. She's very coarse. She likes drinking. She likes fighting. She might be narcoleptic. Not sure. And at one point, when Machias and Eustace are fighting and she wants to settle them down, she challenges Machias, Eustace, and Reen to a simultaneous 3v1 duel and kicks their asses, which is just the best.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like Sarah a lot. She clearly was part of the creation of Class 7. Like, the Class 7 isn't really aware at first of why they're the first in this experimental class, and Sarah is sort of guiding them through their school experience, but she knows more than she's letting on. And at the flash forward prologue at the very beginning, she's leading Class 7 in some kind of war or mission scenario that they don't really tell you a lot about, except that there's a lot of big machines, and Instructor Sarah is a badass. I love her.
She's very much a badass. And her voice actress just loves her to death. Like, you might have... If you saw the recent panel that Nisa had just a few weeks ago, I think it was.
Anime Expo, I think.
Yeah, Anime Expo. She loves her character. And with good reason, because Sarah just has so much comedic opportunity with all of her lines and her drinking and her, laziness when it comes to teaching, so she's good.
There's also a couple hard-drinking ladies in Trails in the Sky, and I would love nothing more than for Sarah to hang out with Scheherazade for like a game or a scene or something. And also, they romanized her name as Sarah Valstein, which makes me think of Valstein Castle from Ys Oath and Felgana, which I played only a few months ago, so that was a that was a fun thing, seeing that surname appear on the screen. But yeah, she's great. She's definitely my favorite character outside of Class 7, even though she's their homeroom teacher. And I don't know, if I had a favorite student, it would be Eustace or Laura, and we covered them early on. But let's go into the ones we haven't gone over yet. I mentioned Emma, how she takes like a big sister role for Fee. She is a mage girl with glasses and a magic staff, and she's super good at magic and school.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like we get a ton about her, at least by the cut point. I mean, I think we find out by the end of Chapter 3 that she has something going on with a cat, right?
Yes. There's a stray cat that Reen has met a couple times, and Emma seems to know about the cat.
Yeah. And so there's some mystery sort of surrounding that, and so I'm interested in whatever that's going to be. But other than that, I mean, I just feel like she's just like sort of like good girl who's good at school and like does what she's supposed to do at this point.
Yeah, she's class president, isn't she, as well? So
yeah.
She's definitely the middle ground. Yeah, Yeah, she's definitely there for reasons, and she's definitely the middle ground for the whole class, but by the breakpoint you don't really know much about her, and you only really get drip-fed. I feel like she's going to play into some bigger stuff later on, and I mean, I'm interested in her, and I think like juggling her with another magic user is really difficult, because I almost prefer the other one, like, quite a bit more.
Resounding Beat is so broken early
Elliot
on,
is more useful.
And they're really, really similar to... the two mages in this game are really similar to Chloe and Olivier, even down to how their orbments are set up.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know if I prefer Emma to the other magic user.
Elliot.
Yeah, Elliot. I'm just terrible with names today. I'm so sorry.
Elliot is really kind of better set up to be your pure healer.
Yes,
and Emma is really better set up to be your damage mage with a little bit of healing thrown in.
Yeah. Elliot has some native blue orbments in his orbment setup, so he's gonna be naturally given a lot of water magic and healing magic. While Emma has some mirage orbments in her setup. Again, this is a lot like Chloe and Olivier, and Mirage does a lot of things, but including increasing your EP. So I think she's more naturally equipped to be a powerhouse offensive mage, and Elliot is more equipped to be a powerful healer and booster. But they're both good, and I just can't get it out of my head. Emma really reminds me of Chihiro from Persona 3 and 4.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because she ends up being class president, and she's a girl who mostly has it together and has brown hair and glasses. I don't know. That was the first thing I thought of when I.
Well,
when I met her.
it's interesting that you mentioned Persona, because some of the voice actors in Cold Steel also have roles in the Persona games.
Like... No, it's funny that you mentioned that, because
there are so many things lifted from Persona.
Yeah, no kidding. Trails of Cold Steel really feels like Trails in the Sky after its developers played Persona 3 and 4 for 2 years straight. But I don't mean that in mimicry or in a rip-off sense. I think I think they just borrowed ideas and made it into their own thing. In between,
it's way more streamlined.
Yeah, it's more streamlined. Instead of having 21 to 24 very regimented 10 scenes of dialogue, social links like Persona, you have you basically say, oh, you have enough free time to hang out with 2 or 3 friends. Which 2 or 3 do you want to hang out with? And that'll get you extra scenes of dialogue and sort of maybe boost a meter if it's that gives increased likelihood of double attacks in battle or something with that character. So it's but in a way, I mean, Reen is a little bit like a Persona protagonist in that he is like very strong and very good and is the glue that connects the whole team together.
He definitely is.
He's the sticky stuff, yeah.
Even Sarah picks up on that really quickly, and you'll notice with a lot of the field studies, Reen is you'll always be able to work out what party you're given, because Chapter 1 you got given, I don't know, is it Laura, Elliot, and
Elisa.
Laura, Elliot, and Elisa, and then you get
we
the
haven't
other...
talked about.
Yeah, no, we still got Elisa and Gaius and Elliot to cover, so I haven't forgotten.
Well, Gaius is so forgetful that it's okay for us not to talk about him.
There's one scene with Gaius early in Chapter 2 where, because Gaius was on the team with Machias and Eustace in Chapter 1, and Gaius talks to Reen, like, hey, those two will not get along, but if anyone can convince them to get along, it's you, bro.
That's basically Reen's role for most of the game. Yeah. He is literally the peacemaker.
Yeah, it really illustrates Reen as the glue guy, and Gaius as a sort of taciturn, nice dude.
Yeah,
wins. Always the wins.
Bad because I do quite like Gaius, but even his chapter is Chapter 3, and unfortunately he's kind of overshadowed in that chapter because another character's family member turns up at some point in there, and that kind of overtakes everything. Gaius is kind of cool, but yeah, his whole stick again is oh, I'm one with the wind, and I love my homeland and things like that. So I really would like to see if
I am one with the force. The force is one with me. I am one with but replace force with wind. Me.
If you put Donnie Yen into this game, then we're talking about an all-timer. Absolutely, especially if it's 1991 Iron Monkey Donnie Yen. Absolutely. Oh man. And Alana, I'm not sure if you've seen the Ip movies, but you want to talk about a handsome martial arts dad? Oh my.
Oh no, I haven't. I'm gonna have to look this up in a minute.
Oh, yeah, they're good martial arts movies, and Donnie Yen is like is one of my absolute favorite martial arts actors. But anyway, it was a bit of a shock seeing him in Rogue One, if anything. But okay, back to Trails of Cold Steel. Gaius, yeah, he's from the Nord Highlands. He, which is the people of the Nords are part of Erebonia, but are sort of more tribal or more nomadic. It's a less developed civilization than the rest of Erebonia.
It's not actually part of Erebonia. It's outside of the Empire.
Oh,
it's neighbors.
I thought it was the outskirts of the Empire.
They have a close relationship in part because of the role that Emperor Dreichels, who ended the Civil War 225 odd years ago, played with gathering his army starting in Nord, but it's not part technically of the Erebonian Empire. Right. You actually leave Erebonia when you go to the Nord Highlands.
Okay, so Gaius is a true exchange student. I misinterpreted a little bit. I just thought that Nord...
Yeah, I mean, he says a couple times that he doesn't really understand the differences between the nobility and the commoners.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it sort of defines his personality. He's like, I don't know about your ways. Yeah, I think Gaius is very boring.
His family is more interesting than he is
sure.
because his family is so adorable.
At least they have good food, so yeah.
Yes, I want to eat that food.
I don't mind Gaius in combat, though. He has a big spear, and he has some pretty good area skills, and he's like a less good Laura, in a way.
He's very useful.
He's definitely
early
more
on.
of a tank. He's got the better defense, and you can speed him up a little bit more than Laura. But he does get very overshadowed in the late game, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't used him once since chapter 4, I think.
Oh yikes!
Yeah, I mean, he was useful in chapter 3 because I didn't have any other big hitters. But after that, I mean, I haven't touched him. Yeah.
Yeah, no Laura and no Fee in chapter 3 means that Gaius and Reen are all you got, really. Moving on a little bit, Gaius actually strikes up a friendship with Elliot pretty early on, and at the very, very beginning of the game, Reen, Gaius, and Elliot are a bit of a trio. Elliot is sort of quiet and lacks confidence. He's the shortest non-Fee member of the class, and he's also an avid musician. He is really excited to be able to join the school orchestra, and he's also probably the best healer on the team. We mentioned a little bit about his ornaments and his skills earlier on, but. I think Elliot's nice. I don't dislike him at all, but I think he's in the Gaius Emma tier of being a little underdeveloped in the first 3 chapters.
I would agree.
I think Elliot's very sweet. You don't know a lot about him again until later on, but I really appreciate his kind of meekness, he's very, compared to all the guys, Reen is pretty, stoic, and then you've got Eustace, who's just Eustace, and then Gaius, who gets on with his own thing. Macius is very loud and has a big personality and is always wanting to do everything right. But Elliot is just kind of there, and you never get the sense that he not that he doesn't want to be there, but it's more that is he right for military school kind of thing?
He doesn't fit. Yeah.
No.
He's a cinnamon roll in every sense.
Aww. He's adorable though. I would he is a cinnamon bun, I think. I actually really like Elliot.
He looks like a cinnamon roll and is actually a cinnamon roll.
Correct.
The last time I had cinnamon rolls was when I watched the last season of season finale of Better Call Saul with one of my friends. Because the main character in that works at a Cinnabon in a mall, and for the past 2 or 3 years, me and one of my friends all right, whenever we watch the finale together, we got to go and get some Cinnabon. so whenever someone mentions a fluffy, sweet, kind-hearted character as a cinnamon roll, I'm like, Better Call Saul. Saul is not a cinnamon roll. But yeah, I like Elliot a lot. I think I'm pretty sure we're going to get more development later when we inevitably meet his family, and I am looking forward to that. I think Alana, we mentioned his dad on the Mothers and Fathers episode of Retro.
We did, yeah, and I didn't think much of it at the time because he turns up quite late. But Elliot also has a hot dad.
Oh no! Add another to the pile. But I am a little surprised that it's taken us this long, but there's one more member of Class 7 that we haven't gone over, and that's Elisa. Now, she is blonde. She accidentally falls onto Reen in the first 30 minutes of the game, and they have an awkward first episode of an anime encounter that ends up with her slapping him, I think. And she is the most obvious tsundere archetype since she's 9 out of 10 Helga Patakis from Hey Arnold.
I can see that.
Yeah, that's the tsundere scale that I use personally. But she goes by Elisa R at the beginning, but she blanches whenever someone mentions the Reinhold company, or I'm sorry, Reinford.
So you picked it up. Good for you.
Yeah, the Reinford company, or mentions to her, or like there's even a scene where you do some. There's like a little business task where you in chapter 1 where you run a vegetable stall for an afternoon, and Elisa has the most business acumen of the 4 teammates.
That's right.
And when someone suggests that to her, she again like changes the subject. So it's very clear that Elisa is the daughter of the Reinford company CEO. And
you find out in chapter 3, I believe.
No, I'm 0% surprised by that because I haven't necessarily gotten there yet, but I already know, of course. Similar to Eustace, I guess, doesn't want to be defined by that part of her, so she avoids it. And
I find her a bit irritating.
Her awkward interactions with Reen, I do not appreciate one bit. No,
they're trying to force them into a ship.
They
and I don't
really
like
are.
it.
No, I would much prefer the good ship Laura, or even the good ship Emma. Really,
right?
Eustace.
Okay.
Yes. High five, Alana.
Woo.
I mean, I like the way she plays in battle. S crafts are so broken in this game that if I can just constantly just use her Blessed Arrow, I think.
Her normal cross,
as a CP battery, just constantly. I feel like once I just use that a couple times, I can just kind of keep chaining S breaks together, and that makes the game significantly easier.
Yeah,
so I like when she's in my party.
And listeners, if you're uninitiated, basically special skills in this game are called crafts, and spells are called arts. So yes, you are playing with arts and crafts in the entire Trails series. And S crafts are each character's sort of super moves. And they're very powerful, and you can even use one at any time to interrupt the turn order. So if you have more than one character able to use their S-craft, even if it's in the middle of a bunch of enemy turns, you can pull off 3 S-crafts in a row. S-crafts are very powerful, and Elisa is pretty good in battle because she's balanced. She's good with spells. She's like a sort of a Jill of all trades character, but she can increase other people's CP for craft points for S-crafts, and that makes her very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she's basically a reasonable execution of a tsundere anime character, and that is this is a little disrespectful, but it's almost the defining part of her personality.
Yeah,
at the moment.
But it's only for that first part of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
she has tsundere elements in the rest of it, but that moment between her and Reen is the only one that's really tsundere, and she gets. It's their first impression of her after meeting her briefly at the very beginning of the prologue, so I get how it sticks with people. But, I feel like she also doesn't get enough credit for getting over it in fairly short order. You only suffer through it through the prologue. Mm-hmm. And chapter 1's free day.
Yeah, and especially after chapter 3 or during chapter 3 when you meet her grandfather and sort of get a feel for what her background is, and you get a feel for sort of why she has a chip on her shoulder. They do a nice job of shading her out, and not to spoil anything for passes, but it definitely she softens for the remainder of the game.
We mentioned Irina Reinford on the Mother's Day feature, which is Elisa's mom. So yeah, there's definitely a big thing going on there, and
I don't like her.
No, I'm not sure about her either.
But is she a hot mom?
She's the problem
very
is
businesswoman-y.
Exactly.
Okay,
she's
sure.
very much. I will get my stuff done, and she literally will walk past Elisa.
Oh, so she's an independent businesswoman who don't need no man.
Correct.
You don't need anyone apart from Sharon.
Sharon.
Oh,
I don't trust Sharon.
Is Sharon an administrative assistant or something?
You'll see.
Yeah, you'll find out. Sharon is a maid of very many talents.
Oh, so are we talking like the maid from Danganronpa 2?
Not that much.
I'm sorry, Danganronpa V3. I'm getting my Danganronpas mixed up.
You are. Not that much, no.
Okay. Well, we've already spent like 45 minutes just talking about Class 7, but I would like this podcast to be under 3.5 hours. So let's continue a little bit. The basic structure of Trails of Cold Steel is between sort of school days, then field days. Then field studies. We talked a little bit about how you can sort of go around and talk to your friends and increase, your connection meter with them during your free time, but that's only a couple points in the game where you get to freely explore the school. Most of the time, you're going to classes. You don't have to play through classes day by day like Persona 3 onward. Reen sort of gets roped into being a representative of the student council, so he's literally charged to right wrongs and solve people's problems in town in between major story segments. And field studies are the points in the game where Class 7 travels out of town to see the world and do a special diet of coursework and tasks that are provided by Instructor Sarah. There's also the old schoolhouse, which I do want to talk about, but we're going to put that aside for now. The first 3 field studies are the first 3 chapters. They go to the village of Celtic, then the city of Bereahard, and then the open expanse of the Nord Highlands. And in each of them, I guess we mentioned this before, but they see the noble commoner conflict play out, and they see bigger glimpses of the world outside of their hometowns. Because again, these 9 people are from different corners of Erebonia, and part of these field studies are to broaden their horizons and teach them about where they're from. So what do you think of this? What do you think of field studies, and what do you think of this structure at all? Because the game is sort of structured into school days, schoolhouse, field studies, side quests, and it repeats. But I sort of dig it. Like, every time I go back to school, I'm eager to go and talk to people again and like hang out at school again. And when I know a field study's coming up, like I'm right before the 3rd field study right now, I'm like, oh damn, where are we going this time? It's structured, but I think it's structured smartly and gets players anticipating the next chunk of content. Do I sound like a complete insane person, or
no, you don't?
Okay.
That is exactly one of the draws of their system. I think that if they had taken the Persona route and done a day-to-day kind of thing, it would have gotten out of hand, and because Persona can really start to get kind of boring when you're doing a lot of daily activities without any story content in between them.
Yeah, when it's 3 weeks to the next piece of story content, your cat is telling you to go to bed early. Persona can,
and everyone's bugging you to go into the metaverse or to go into
Tartarus or the TV world. Yeah,
yeah, it's just like But I think also, just in relation to the other games in the series, I think having those free days in a hub world that is static, like it's always Thors and Trista, you always are dealing with the same people, so other students and townspeople, and their stories develop across each chapter, even though they're just side characters.
Oh yeah, there's also several NPCs, not just your classmates, like Toa and Crow and Cool Biker Girl.
And even just like the other students too, like the small students who don't really factor, they're not voiced, they don't factor into anything main story, but they all have their own little arcs if you keep talking to them after basically every change in story.
Yeah,
like
there's
the shopkeeper girl with the Scottish accent. And the jerk nobleman Patrick that we mentioned before, and the art twins that play a prank on Reen in Chapter 2.
I love them.
I love Becky.
Got, like talking about development, you've got like in your diary, you've got a page where you take notes on every NPC you meet. So you can log all of their changes and read up about them, and even through some of the bonding events you have with your main characters. Like, if you don't have them, you won't find out certain things about them, so it's worth doing bonding events with characters that you have in your party, and also don't, but also just talking to everybody. It's really rewarding.
Yeah, totally agree. There is so much dialogue in this game that is... that can be a little overwhelming, especially since a lot of Falcom games are guilty of this, or at least Legend of Heroes games. They encourage you to talk to every NPC because every NPC in the game will often have new dialogue options when the plot moves on, and you'll sometimes be rewarded for this. There's hidden side quests There's hidden items that are not always well communicated. Like I think it's Red Moon Rose in this game, but in both in both Trails in the Sky and in Cold Steel, there's a book series that you can that if you collect every single book, you get a super item at the end of the game. But they don't tell you about it. They're all of the books are limited to the chapter where you can first find them, and that is just sort of one just grain of sand in the hourglass of all of the hidden optional dialogue in a Trails game. And I think in Cold Steel it's most represented when you visit the Trista is the town where Thors resides in. But when you're going around the academy and the school town in between field studies, and I mean I mentioned a couple of them, but what other NPCs do we think stand out in this game?
Well, we already mentioned Becky. Becky's the best.
Mm-hmm. She's great.
I liked. I liked / hated, but Alan and Bridget. The Alan is the commoner who's part of the fencing club and grew up with Bridget.
Oh, right.
They're childhood friends, and he clearly has the hots for her, but it takes him forever to realize that he's in love with her, and then even longer for him to get the courage up to do anything about it, and you're kind of like, you want to throttle him by the end of the game. Spoilers. But that whole little story was kind of, that subplot was very cute between the two of them. Vivi and Lind, the twins.
Oh, yeah.
One of whom is nice, and the other of whom is a mischievous little prankster who likes to pretend that she's her sister in order to make her sister's life kind of, interesting / a living hell.
And no, we can't forget the most important student NPC of all, Kenneth, the fishing senpai.
Oh, God, Kenneth.
Yeah.
Not always, but I often really like fishing games and RPGs, which is not a popular opinion. But
it's a wrong one. It's okay.
Cold Steel is an exception.
I did it this morning, and it was actually pretty fun.
This is better fishing than average. There's even a fishing game only RPG at E3 that I played. I almost wanted to do an article about it, but but it declined ultimately. But yeah, there's a fishing mini game in this, and it's pretty good. And the fishing student that gives you rods and rewards for catching rare fish is named Kenneth.
Yeah, and don't do it on Turbo, even though Alana told me not to. I did. And my arm hurt so badly at the end.
Me too.
I feel like it was harder on PS4 than I remember it being on Vita and PC.
It's very easy on Vita, but I also can't turn on Turbo mode, so I don't know what that's about. You're basically just doing like one of Mario's fireballs in Super Mario RPG, just pressing buttons in sequence as fast as you can.
Yeah, I'm good at pressing buttons quick, so...
So, we mentioned the old schoolhouse. At the end of every batch of side quests you do at the school, the principal and instructor Sarah ask you to, hey, go ahead and explore another floor of that old schoolhouse. Because the old schoolhouse, a former school building that's gone into disuse, has a dungeon hidden under it that changes its layout and appearance whenever you unlock a new floor of it, like it's the cathedral in Diablo or something. And there's secrets under the old schoolhouse that Sarah and the principal and maybe others know about, but the students are like, I don't know why they keep having us go in here, because this is weird and dangerous, but I guess we better. And the schoolhouse is, just a small dungeon and boss that you got to take care of at different increments. And I have to admit, maybe the hardest boss I've dealt with the entire game so far is the old schoolhouse boss.
Chapter 2 one?
Yeah, between Chapter 1 and 2.
Yes.
Yep. That's the one I struggle with, too.
It's one of the hardest ones.
Yeah, those three, manta ray-looking things that cast Confuse on you. That was not easy and not appreciated.
and they're spaced so far out, too. You can't use, area of effect attacks on them either. So it was just, focus on one, then focus on another, then focus on another. But, yeah, I party wiped on that twice.
But you also have to spread yourselves out, because they have their own area of effect attacks.
Yeah.
And if you have any anti-Confuse equipment, you better throw it on. And your party options aren't great. You do have Elisa and Laura, but... we've talked about how Gaius isn't exactly the most electrifying party member.
And I'm curious, with the old schoolhouse, is that where the prologue opens? Is that correct?
Yeah,
it is.
Okay, I thought so. Okay, because I couldn't quite remember, and I'm like, there's something else going on here. That was actually one of the hardest battles for me too. Was that prologue battle? I really struggled with that one for whatever reason.
Yeah, the schoolhouse is definitely one of the more. It's not challenging, but it's definitely where some of the difficulty spikes come in because you can't really train up during chapters because Cold Steel's experience system is really cool in that it will always award more to the people who are lower levels, but then it will start to peter out the higher you get.
It's very sweet in that way.
Trails in the Sky does that too.
Yeah, the whole series is.
It's really nice, but when you start to hit like 50, whatever level you need to be, or and it starts evening out, and then you're losing to the boss still, you're like, well, I'm doing something wrong, and you have to play around with your augments and stuff. So
I don't think this is a supremely challenging RPG, but there are occasional difficulty spikes. And customizing your equipment and your orbments are the materia-like system where you equip gems to a character's specific orbment grid, and then they learn skills and spells and passive bonuses. Like, I think you'll get powerful enough through smart equipment and orbment that the difficulty curve will even out a little bit.
I mean, as the game goes, I found that it gets much easier as you can specialize your characters more.
Yeah.
And you can lower their speed, raise yours, just load up on CP for S breaks. I mean, I've taken bosses down in 4 turns at this point. So
yes,
it gets easier as you go if you're paying attention to it. But early on, Chapter 2 I thought was the most challenging part of the game.
Yeah, there's just a few surprising difficulty spikes, and again, the hardest battle I've done by far was right in between Chapters 1 and 2, which is a little head scratching, but I don't think it's ever really unfair. And enemies will deal surprising amounts of damage if you neglect your equipment a little bit. But this is all like RPG basics, and if you tinker a little bit and strategize a little bit, I don't think any of it's unfair.
Yeah, well, it helps that you recover all your HP when you level up, but also that some characters have CP-based healing, and CP recovers whenever you take or receive damage or give damage. Yeah. So and the max is 200 that anyone can have at any one time. So, yeah, it's not hard at all.
And you can use 100 CP to use your S-Craft, but if you let the meter go all the way to 200, then it'll be a much, much more powerful version of the same S-Craft.
Yeah, I always save up for 200.
Yeah, me too. But let's go into those field studies. Again, these are sort of like weekend trips that you take, one per chapter, and to explore a new corner of the Empire. And the first one is in a sort of a pastoral village called Seldic. The second one is in a village...
Celtic.
What?
It's Celtic?
Oh,
with the K sound, not a...
like the Boston Celtics. Got it.
That'll do.
And the Berea Hard is the village of nobility, which is right down the road from Celtic. And then the Nord Highlands, which are in the far-reaching corner of outside the Empire's border, as we've established earlier. But what do we think of these 3 story segments? Again, each of them sort of illustrates part of the noble commoner divide, and hints at intrigue going on behind the scenes. You meet more characters that will at each chapter they'll definitely figure in later, and you also see some very shadowy NPCs that will definitely appear later.
Darth
like
Vader.
Baron Blueblank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in Trails in the Sky, isn't he?
Is he a certain character from Trails in the Sky that I remember, Caitlin?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
But like Celtic for me is it's very much the first field study, so it very much eases you into the system, teaches you what you need to do, gives you a tiny bit of the flavor. Like the one thing I really take away from Celtic's field study is that's where you meet Claire. That's the only thing I really take away from that.
Claire's great. I liked her. And
I like Claire a lot.
In the whole 15 seconds I saw her, I'm like, all right, I like this lady. Oh, and she's Sarah's friend, even better.
The minute they called her the Ice Maiden, I was like, well, this is gonna go well. And I was like, yep, I like her already. But yeah, that's where you're introduced to the railway military police, which are the opposition to the what's the army called? The Provincial Army. Is that? So they're kind of like loggerheads at points in the game as well. So
yeah, the Provincial Army is like a city's police station, and the railway. What are they again?
Railway, the
RMP.
Yeah, the RMP are like the FBI that will take over the police precinct for a big crime, and so there's definitely resentment and tensions between the two groups.
Yeah, and that ties into the noble commoner divide too, because the provincial armies are run by the noble lords who lead each of the major provinces, whereas the RMP and the general military of Erebonia are controlled by Chancellor Gileath Osborne, who is not a noble and is basically the de facto leader of the entire country and supports a lot of more pro-commoner legal measures that the nobility does not appreciate.
Yeah, again, the Erebonia is an empire, and there is an emperor and a crown prince, but Chancellor Osborne is like the prime minister, like the
pretty much,
like the the functional ruler, and not the ceremonial or true ruler.
Yeah, more about him next time.
Yeah, more.
A lot about him,
especially since there's a. I mean. Even having separate rulers of the nobles and commoners, further illustrates this divide that just is clearly the driving force behind a lot of the plot in this game.
Yeah.
But Celtic was also really cool because Celtic was, in a lot of ways, it was a callback to Trails in the Sky, to early FC. If you remember, some of the very first things that you do in FC is you go and you replace the lights and the lamps
That's right, and you fight monsters that are threatening farms.
And you go and you get a bear claw for somebody, which are all three of those things that you have to do in Celtic.
That's super fun.
Cool.
And, early FC ends with you solving a crime, something that gets stolen, and what do you do in Celtic? You're finding out who stole all those goods from the Grand Market. So it was cool. And I actually did have FC on my PSP, and I'd played through the prologue of FC before I started Cold Steel, but I got distracted by other stuff and never completed it. So I remembered that part of FC even when I played Cold Steel for the first time, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool in kind of a nostalgic kind of way.
Oh, I remember.
You remember?
Yeah, Celtic is, again, very baby's first RPG village. It's pastoral, it has a lot of farms, the quests are pretty simple, and the crime that you resolve at the end is, showing tension between the RMP and the provincial army, because the provincial army sort of let some crime happen and then tried to cover it up. It's a bad scene in general. But in Bereahard, the right that you're wronging is a little bit more dramatic, because Reen gets badly injured in one of the quests, and Machias and Eustace are basically at fault because their bickering interrupted the boss fight. But and
because they couldn't link as well.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I like the way they tie that in a few times.
Yeah. They tie in the attack linking ability into sort of the story and the lore of the game in what's a pretty smart way. But then right when Machias and Eustace are sort of starting to make up, Machias gets kidnapped. I just did this hours ago, but it was a faction of nobles that wanted to kidnap the governor's son to pressure the governor for something.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, it's basically Eustace's dad who does it, right?
It's his dad. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Because remember, his dad also pulls Eustace back to their home and then basically puts him under house arrest so he can't do anything.
Right. And then you have you had to do the first half of that dungeon with only 3 people, which was a bit of a pain in the ass, even though one of those 3 people is Fee. Yeah, those events you eventually, of course, rescue Machias and Eustace rejoins the team, and it has some good moments. But that again, this is chapter 2 of the game, and nobles are kidnapping commoners for political reasons. So it goes pretty hard from the get-go.
You also find out in Chapter 2 that Rufus is on the board of directors for Thor's military academy.
That's right.
Which is kind of a theme.
We can maybe talk about that in the next episode, though.
Yes.
The rest of the board are all later in the game. Or actually, wait a second. I think doesn't Irina reveal her role when you're going to Nord?
The beginning of Chapter 4.
I think it might be Chapter 3 with Sharon, mightn't it?
Because I think you run into Irina when you're going Nord, and I think she just casually drops.
That's right. You stop by Ruhr you're on the
Yeah.
train, and because it's such a long train journey, you have to change at Rua, and she turns up and is
And just like, hey y'all, I'm also on the board. Didn't you know?
Yeah. So parents and relations are on the board of directors. But yeah, we were talking about Rufus. I don't trust Rufus at all. Like, he makes my skin crawl.
He seems way too charming.
I don't know.
Yep.
He doesn't make my skin crawl quite as much as, let's say, the surprise manipulative villain in Trails in the Sky. But because that guy, holy crap! But
there's someone else who makes my skin crawl more.
But I would not be surprised if again I don't know though. I think he's a noble and wants to do what's best for the country, but he's also a noble, and the nobles are up to some shady shit. So I don't know if I would be surprised or not if he betrayed or not, because it's.
I'm not saying one thing.
He seems like the most likely candidate to me.
He seems like a likely candidate, but I don't think he's evil.
Okay.
Well, my problem is that he's voiced by the same person who voices Alexei in Tales of Vesperia.
Oh my!
So immediately I was like, okay, I don't trust you. That's immediate, like, So we'll see. We'll see if I'm wrong. He's very pretty though, so maybe he gets a pass. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not this thirsty normally. I'm so.
That's a lie. We are this thirsty always. But let's see. I mean, moving on to Chapter 3 a little bit. This is what I haven't played. You visit the Nord Highlands, and definitely Gaius' family. But what sort of plot machinations happen in Chapter 3?
Well, I mean, there's an attack by the same group that sort of put the theft together in Chapter 1. So, like, they attack like a nation next door. What's the name of the nation that's next door to them again? I can't remember.
Liberal
is on the. This is the opposite side of the.
Okay,
it's Calvard.
Calvard,
Nord is between.
So there's like a
Arabonia
simultaneous attack on Calvard and Erebonian forces, and so you sort of are trying to prevent them from like going to all-out war. And for me, this was the part of the game where, because for me, you guys were talking about this earlier, like the rhythm of the first couple chapters, like it felt a little constricting to me. Like I didn't have like big areas. I was just like running through towns or like really small maps. But for me, when Nord came up and I actually got to like ride a horse around like these big open fields and just kind of explore a little bit, for me, that's when the game really sort of clicked into place for me, was Nord.
I mean, for me, it was watching Machias and Eustace make up in Chapter 2. Chapter 1's a little boring, but with like that was the biggest plot hook for me thus far. Although I've barely scratched the surface. I think I'm less than 20 hours in.
Well, Nord as well is kind of like, it's a little easier and a little more open, but like that attack brings to light a repeated incident from, I think, Chapter 2. So if you remember when you're in the canyon in Chapter 2, you see a flying robot go across the canyon. The robot and the person turn up and you meet them. And
Milliam, she's so great.
Is she the person who has like a floating partner that's kind of like kind of like
looks like Big Hero 6, yeah.
Well, no, it looks like the technology in the old schoolhouse that you use for your practical
Very
exams.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. So you meet her, and you're basically trying to solve the mystery of who's attacked both of these areas at the same time. There are some other characters you meet as well. So you meet one of the Vanders. So if you play Trails in the Sky, you'll know that Mueller Vander is.
Oh, cool.
Well, yeah, is Olivia's bodyguard, correct?
Long-suffering
bodyguard. I love Mueller Vander. The two times he's popped up so far.
Bodyguard and potential life partner, yes.
Definitely life partner.
In my headcanon, and definitely life partner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you
all of your and Mueller are great.
Zex Vander, that's his name.
One-eyed Zex.
Yeah. You'll also recognize the surname from the Cold Steel 3 demo we played.
That's right.
Yep.
But he used a different school of Vander's swordplay than Mueller does, and they even mentioned that a little bit.
Correct. Yeah, he can't use the one sword, so he uses the two swords.
Yeah, he fights kind of like Yashua in Trails in the Sky, I think.
Yeah. But yeah. For me, Chapter 3 might be the weakest for me. I think. It starts off some intrigue, definitely, with the attack, and this is also the first time you meet a character called Comrade G, and the comrades they get an official name later on. They're a very interesting bunch, and
we met G,
kind of become...
C, and V, right? Because I remember they talked to a guy.
Oh, we have met G.
At the end of chapter 1, you meet G and C. Yeah,
that's right.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, C's the guy who's wearing like the Darth Vader getup.
He's Darth Vader. Yeah.
Yeah, he's Darth Vader.
I thought it was more like Sentai kind of.
Yeah, it is kind of.
A little bit, yeah. But you only get a dramatic.
There's the voice and everything.
You only get a dramatic demasking in a couple Sentai series, which I am covering in a new podcast. It's in 73 parts, and each part is 4 hours.
Sentai encounter.
Yeah, I'm the only panelist. It's just me, so which I know is what the people want.
Exactly.
But
one-stop shop.
This will not surprise anyone. But masked people jumping into giant mechs and having them battle each other is 100% my jam. So I'm looking forward to some of that later.
Yep. So yeah, that's kind of the first time you encounter them yourself. So that kind of starts the wheel in motions. But I think it might be because Gaius' story in Nord is kind of a bit removed from the rest of Erebonia. It just kind of felt a bit detached to me, and it probably didn't help that I played it over E3, so I played like half of it before and half of it after, but I think this was definitely... And the areas are quite big. I think this is the area I would struggle with without Turbo. And I think I mentioned it in passing, but I'm not sure I could make it through Cold Steel without Turbo. I think I really appreciate the slow burn, and I really appreciate that you can basically quick warp anywhere around Thor's and Trista. But the movement speed on the map is sometimes quite difficult for me to cope with, because I like... It's just a bit too slow for me.
That bugs me more than the speed of combat, honestly.
Yeah, I think so. And so I'm really grateful. I love what I've played so far, and I love the story, but I think Nord would have been where I'd have really struggled without Turbo mode, personally.
So we've covered the first 3 chapters. In the second podcast episode, we're going to be covering more characters and the remaining chapters of the game. But I think we're all quite positive on it. I mean, I know Caitlin is, since she's this is her. I'm guessing third play of this game at least.
Yes.
But there's definitely a lot of plot intrigue, and we mentioned that there's a wealth of dialogue, and the game's a little bit slow moving. But maybe we haven't said it outright. The dialogue's good. This is a well written game.
Absolutely.
It's so well done.
Exceed really killed this. Yeah.
Yeah, they did a great job.
And I remember when Exceed was localizing Trails in the Sky 2 and 3, they showed like books of how large the script was, and these were like multiple textbooks stacked on top of each other's size. There's just an indecent amount of dialogue in these games, but at least it's good, and it really gives you a feeling of immersion and experiencing this cool setting.
If it makes me want to play the other 8 games in the series, then you're a winner. You know, I want to go back and play Sky, and I want to play the Crossbell games, but they're not localized, so it's really frustrating because Crossbell is referenced quite a lot in Cold Steel.
Yeah, I was going to say that,
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious that the two are kind of happening in parallel, aren't they? So I think the first Crossbell game is towards the end of Cold Steel 1, and then the second Crossbell game maybe is overlapping 2 as well, and towards its own space.
I think so.
Crossbell, there's a gap between Cold Spell 2 and 3 anyway, so it's
Crossbell is a small city-state that's in between Erebonia and Calvard, and I think it's been fought over by those two much larger nations, like, for generations.
Yep.
And so, and they even, you meet people from Crossbell and Trails in the Sky as well, so it's not like they just had it spring out of the ether after the first 3 Trails games were made. But I think that we'll hear about the events in Crossbell during Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2, and and the events of that will figure more specifically into Cold Steel 3. So hopefully they give us. I mean, we talked about this on an episode of Random, Caitlin, but we want there needs to be some kind of primer on Crossbell to people and to people to understand Cold Steel 3 better. And I don't think the door is closed on a possible localization.
They keep hinting at it, so
it would make sense, I think, given the popularity in the West, and also the fact that NISA presumably now own this and East off of Falcom. So I think that it would. They've got the turnaround, the money, and the profile and the marketing to probably make it like, hey, you want to fill in the gap between these games? Then here you go. Here's these, and
it feels a little weird for Nisa to be more successful than their parent company right now, but it really appears to be the case.
Yeah, that's true.
But we're not talking about Crossbell here. We're not talking about Cold Steel 3. We are at the end of the first episode of Trails of Cold Steel 1. We will be back in 2 weeks for the thrilling conclusion. I will be going ham on this game in those next 2 weeks because I am behind, and I truly do want to finish it. Both for
terrified.
Yeah, both for the podcast, and because this has been in my backlog for so long, and I've been ignoring it. I really need to rectify that, and hopefully it will happen in the next few weeks. I might have to. Put aside some of my Final Fantasy XIV grinding to it, which hurts, but this is more important.
You can definitely do it.
But even more important than that, this is episode 199. Now, if my math is right, that means next week is episode 200. That's a mile.
See, 199 plus 1, yeah, 200.
Right on. Okay, see, I was never good at integers. It makes more sense to me if it would make more sense to me if I made them into fractions or something. But next week is episode 200. It is in the planning stages. We have an idea for what we're going to do for it. It has not been recorded yet, but I am looking forward to that a lot. It is going to get weird, and I'm going to make stupid rules that we have to follow, and those are two of my favorite things on podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
But following episode 200, there's going to be more Trails of Cold Steel. And following that, we're going to do another RPG Villains episode. Zach, you were on the first RPG Villains episode a few months ago, and I think you're very excited about the subject of the second one.
Oh, I am. Oink, oink, oink.
But, following those episodes in August, we are going to be playing Wild Arms 3 in September. That was originally the plan for the game we record podcasts for in July, but a certain announcement of a certain Trials of Mana... I can't mix up those two T words.
You're okay.
Yeah.
You're doing it.
Right. The Trials of Mana announcement made me pull an audible and push Wild Arms 3 back to September, but we are going to play that game. That was a winner of a public poll that we held in the spring, so we have not forgotten Wild Arms 3. But listeners, if you want to talk about past, present, or future episodes of Retro Encounter, the best way to contact us is to email retro@rpgfan.com. We also have message boards, a Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, a Discord server, a Twitch channel, all RPG fan themed and all linked from the main page, rpgfan.com. We also have two other fine podcasts, Random Encounter and Rhythm Encounter. Caitlin, you're a regular fixture on Random. And no one is a regular fixture on Rhythm because...
Not anymore.
There hasn't been an episode of that in quite a while.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Caitlin, we might have to do just an FF14 dedicated episode.
Yes.
And I'll fly to Mike's house to in case I have to kidnap him to do it.
Get through Hillary first.
Yeah. Yeah, she can be on the episode too. Problem solved.
Yeah, she's playing the game.
I think she'd take our side with us, Caitlin.
I think she would.
But anyhow, Rhythm Encounter is not dead. It is but dormant, and hopefully it will be revived later. I cannot say when or how or what, though. But if you want to give any feedback for any of our podcasts, you can review us or comment on iTunes or Google Play or however you are listening to us. We want all the feedback you can provide. So, thank you so much, everyone, for joining me on this. This is a game that I've wanted to cross off for so long,
Same.
and I know that a lot of both RPG fan staff and RPG fan readers and listeners love the Trails games. It gets a lot of discussion on Facebook or Twitter posts or in the Discord. So it's I think that we were possibly overdue for this episode, but I'm glad we're here, and I'm glad that I will finish this game very soon.
I'm so excited. I'm trying so hard not to talk about stuff that happens past Nord, and it's so hard.
No.
If I've been quiet, it's because I don't want to say things for fear of spoiling what happens to the rest of the game.
I understand, and even though I don't care about spoilers 90% of the time, I do want to respect the the structure of the podcast and to keep the discussion to the areas that we're going to talk about. But I will let both of you.
Might be playing along.
I will let both of you absolutely pop off in the second episode because that is.
We'll all be popping off. I hope.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's stuff to talk about.
I think that is definitely definitely what the listeners want. But in case listeners want to contact us directly, how should they do so? Starting with you, Zach.
You can email me at zachw@rpgfan.com or find me on Discord at zachw.
Right on. And Caitlin?
You can email me at caitlina@rpgfan.com or Leanne Cazzaro on social media.
And Alana?
You can find me on Twitter at Alana Hagues, or you can email me at alanah@rpgfan.com, or anything RPG fan related. Otherwise is Diving Falcons.
Excellent. And listeners, if you want to reach me, the best way to do so is to email retro@rpgfan.com, because I'm the one that reads that email. But you can also find me on social media at TheRealMonsoon on Twitter, at Evoker4Dogs on Twitter sometimes, Monsoon Mike on the Discord, and Monsoon on RPG Fans forums. Oh man, I have a lot of video game ahead of me. I know I do. I'm getting
Yes.
I still do too.
Try to pace yourself as much as possible, because some of the end game stuff is a slog.
No, it's all good. I will when those slogs happen, I will throw on a podcast or queue up a bunch of Netflix documentaries and then just go be dead to the world for chunks of 10 hours at a time. But I'll make it happen.
Wow.
I'll make it happen.
They're not that long, the slogs. They're not 10 hours.
But, no, when I get into full grind mode, I can sort of turn into a monster. So we'll see.
Right.
We'll see what happens in the next 2 weeks. But I am very motivated to finish this game on time. So we'll see. Listeners, thank you. Good night and good luck.